This one German girl named Anneliese grew up with a bunch of pressure from her mom to be a devout Catholic. But little did this woman know her daughter would end up getting possessed by 6 different demons, including the devil himself. Anneliese had at least 67 exorcisms in the period of 10 months where she would do some crazy shit like eat bugs, bark like a dog, and lick the floor. The exorcisms got to be so bad, Anneliese stopped eating and ended up passing away from malnourishment and dehydration. Yeah, this girl's story is just like a horror movie. Well, actually someone did turn her story into a horror movie. The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Anneliese Michel was a devout Catholic girl living in Bavaria, Germany during the 1960s. And by devout, I mean she went to mass at least twice a week. Dang, twice a week? Homegirl's committed. Like, I used to go to church once every 2 weeks, and that was enough. So Anneliese grew up in a strict Roman Catholic household with her parents and 3 sisters. Also, Anneliese's mom gave birth to one of her kids before she was married, and everyone from her family and church said she was disgraced by having an illegitimate child. So as punishment for her sin, her mom literally wore a black veil on her wedding day. Wait, that is so wild to me, but honestly, I kind of vibe with the whole black veil thing. Well, Anneliese's mom was known for putting a lot of pressure on her daughter, especially when it came to religion. So could that have drawn her to the insanity that would happen next? In 1968, when Anneliese was 16, she suddenly blacked out at school and started walking around in some sort of trance. Anneliese said she didn't remember any of it, but her friends and family said it looked like she was in a daze. It kind of sounds like she was just sleepwalking to me. Like maybe she accidentally fell asleep in a boring class and didn't want to admit it. Well, later that night, Anneliese was laying in bed when she said she felt like something was pushing down on her chest. Okay, now things are getting spooky. Definitely sounds like a ghost is involved. Almost 1 year later, the same thing happened. Anneliese woke up in a trance, but this time she started convulsing. So she was shaking uncontrollably, and it was so bad that she wet the bed. So after this weird episode, Anneliese's mom decided to take her to the doctor. I wonder what she told them. Hi, my daughter has been aimlessly walking around and not remembering it. Oh, and she's been tweaking out so bad that she wets the bed. Well, Anneliese's mom ended up taking her to their regular doctor and a neurologist. The neurologist did a scan of her brain and a few other tests and found nothing wrong. Both doctors said it was possibly some type of epilepsy that causes seizures, hallucinations, and memory loss. Okay, I'd believe that, but why would that not show up in the brain scans if epilepsy is a disorder that has to do with the brain? Anyway, after the diagnosis, Anneliese tried to go about her life, but she had another episode. This time, she was given meds that were supposed to stop the convulsions. She was also later put on another medication that was used to treat people with mental disorders like schizophrenia. But wait until you hear this. Anneliese said she started seeing devil faces at random times throughout the day. She also reported hearing demons whispering in her ears while she was praying. She said they told her she was damned and would rot in hell. Devil faces? That is terrifying. Also, I bet her mom wasn't happy to hear that the devil was doing a number on her daughter. Maybe it was to get back at her for having a kid before getting married. But I guess that wouldn't make sense for the demon to prey on Anneliese if she was born after her mom got married. So Anneliese also reported hearing knocking sounds in her bedroom and the scent of burnt feces. Okay, I thought the devil faces were bad, but I think the whole burnt feces thing may be worse. So I'm sure Anneliese's mom was freaking out already, but what really sent her over the edge is when she saw her daughter staring at a statue of the Virgin Mary. She said her daughter's eyes went completely black and her hands looked like they turned into thick paws with claws. Okay, this is strange. What does she mean by paws? Like, did her hands actually morph into them, or was her mom over-exaggerating? Or maybe Anneliese is a werewolf. Anyway, Anneliese and her mom started to think the meds weren't working. Anneliese thought she was possessed and even told one of her doctors that she felt the devil was inside her. It's interesting that she thought she was possessed herself. I've always wondered if possessed people were aware of it. Like, do they know they're being taken over by spirits? Apparently so. At this point, Anneliese is still having these convulsions, devil sightings, and weird poop smellings, but doctors aren't finding anything wrong on her brain scans. She went to several other neurologists too. One said she was neurotic, one said she was epileptic, and another said she demonstrated epileptic patterns, which I guess is different than actually being epileptic. Anyway, that last neurologist ended up giving her a stronger medicine to try and stop her convulsions, but it still didn't work. One of the neurologists supposedly told Anneliese's mom to go to a Jesuit, but later he denied ever saying this. However it happened, Anneliese went to a priest to see if the Lord could help assist out. During this time, Anneliese's episodes were getting way out of hand, or should I say, paw. Her parents said she was close to superhuman. She was ripping off her clothes, doing over 400 squats a day, crawling under the table and barking like a dog. That's some next level crazy right there. She also threw one of her sisters across the room like a rag doll and squeezed an apple so hard it exploded. Okay, so she's described as superhuman, has paws, and now she crushes apples in her hand. I'm starting to think the movie Twilight was made after her story too. So Anneliese finally found a priest that was willing to put up with her craziness. He said she didn't seem epileptic at all and believed she was definitely possessed. He consulted with a bishop to get approved to perform an exorcism on her. Basically, an exorcism is a religious event where priests try to rid possessed people of evil spirits. And in order to perform an exorcism in the Roman Catholic Church, you have to get approval. The approval part is so weird to me. Like, I'm just imagining this priest filling out an exorcism application and waiting for it to be reviewed. So the bishop who approved the exorcism said it had to be done in private. So I'm guessing he didn't want the church to find out there was a demonic girl among the congregation. And the first exorcism was performed, but Anneliese's episodes didn't stop. So the priest and bishop ended up doing at least 66 more exorcisms on her over the course of 10 months. Some of the exorcisms would last up to 4 hours. Oh my gosh, 4 hours is such a long time. Like, was this guy praying over her the whole time, or was he able to go to the bathroom and get a snack at some point? During her sessions, Anneliese would speak in a super low growl. The priest and bishop who were hosting these anti-demon shindigs actually recorded the audio of some of them, and the recordings are creepy. But it wasn't really Anneliese speaking. It was apparently the demons who were taking over her body. During her sessions, Anneliese found out that there were 6 different demons possessing her: Lucifer, Cain, Judas, Adolf Hitler, Nero, and Fleischmann. First of all, I can't believe she was possessed by 6 different spirits, but these weren't just any old random demonic ghosts. They were supposedly the spirits of the devil, a biblical character who executed his own brother, another biblical character who betrayed Jesus, a Nazi dictator, a Roman emperor, and an excommunicated priest from the 1500s. And in her run-in with the spirit of the excommunicated priest, that was a big deal because apparently the guy was kicked out of the church for bad behavior, but the whole thing was on the down low. During her exorcisms, Anneliese provided accurate details about the guy who the priest knew she wouldn't have known. So he assumed she really was being taken over by this guy. The different demons would also argue with one another through Anneliese. Is that not the craziest thing ever? This girl literally had conversations with herself, but it wasn't her, it was Adolf Hitler and Judas. In some of their arguments, the supposed spirit of Hitler took over her and said, "People are stupid as pigs. They think it's all over after death." It goes on. Then Judas took over Anneliese and called Hitler a big mouth who had no real say in hell. Okay, what? I would be flipping out if I were there during all of that. Also, how do they know who was talking? If there were 6 demons taking over, that had to get confusing. And at this point, I feel like the poor girl's body was probably so exhausted after not only 6 possessions, but the 67 exorcisms they performed on her. Like, give her a break. But these exorcisms started to get violent. During them, Anneliese started banging her head against the wall and biting herself. Her fits of rage got so bad, her parents had to tie her up to stop her from hurting herself. But the weird thing about all of this is that in between the exorcisms, Anneliese started to act completely normal. Her supposed seizures stopped, and no one knows if it was from the medication or if they stopped on their own. So then why were they still doing the exorcisms if the reason they were doing them in the first place was no longer a thing? Well, they continued, but Anneliese stopped eating. And this wasn't just like skipping a meal or two. She literally stopped eating. Anneliese got down to 68 pounds and was so weak her parents had to carry her around. Did they not think to take her to the doctor or get her meal replacement shakes or something? That sounds so bad that they had to carry around a 23-year-old. It's okay that you're starving. You're gonna be late for your exorcism appointment. Well, Anneliese's state never got better. In fact, it got worse. She ended up passing away at age 23 from malnutrition, dehydration, and pneumonia. So she was possessed by 6 demons for over 10 months, and that's not even what knocked her out? That is so awful. And how did her parents not step in and stop the exorcisms or try to give the girl a meal? According to the testimonies, people think Anneliese could have survived the pneumonia if her parents force-fed her. But, of course, they were too busy taking her to these creepy religious rituals so they could watch old biblical figures fight with one another through their possessed, malnourished daughter. After Anneliese bit the dust, the bishop, priest, and her parents were all charged with negligent homicide. The prosecution claimed Anneliese had epilepsy and psychosis and wasn't getting the treatment she needed, even though her autopsy later showed no signs of epilepsy. They believed the exorcisms were making it worse for her alleged disorders and thought the parents, priests, and bishop should have stopped the exorcisms and made Anneliese see a doctor. The priest and bishop actually played some of the audio recordings of her exorcisms to back up their case. But would that really back up their case or make it worse? The recordings are pretty disturbing. They also said Anneliese turned down medical treatment, so if they did force feed her or give her any medication, it would have been against her will. But at that point, how do they know if Anneliese was even the one to refuse treatment? Like, that definitely could have been Hitler or Cain talking through her. The priest said he even sought medical attention near the end, but by that, he meant he brought in a doctor to watch one of the exorcisms, and the doctor just mentioned he didn't see any bruising on her. He seriously brought an audience to watch this poor girl? Well, the bishop's testimony actually contradicted the doctor's statement. He said Anneliese had bruises all over her body, as well as black eyes and a swollen face. I'm not sure what to believe at this point, but based on the other facts, I'm sure this girl had a bruiser too. In the end, all 4 people were found guilty. The court determined that Anneliese was unable to make her own decisions and should have been forced to get medical care. The priest and bishop were charged and sentenced to 6 months in prison with 3 years on probation, but it was later reduced to just the 3 years on probation. 6 months is already a super short sentence, but for them to not even serve it, seems like the court may have been showing favoritism to make sure they all had seats in the promised land. The parents didn't receive a sentence because the court decided they had suffered enough. I'm sorry, the parents suffered? How about their daughter who was literally tormented and starved to her demise? But get this, during Anneliese's autopsy, examiners said her brain was in perfect condition. Well, anatomically. I'm sure she had a lot of other stuff going on there on an emotional and mental level. But yeah, the examiner said there were no signs of epilepsy, not even on a microscopic level. But some people believe that since Anneliese didn't actually have epilepsy, the medicine she was on could have had something to do with her hallucinations and crazy episodes. Others believe Anneliese was pressured to suffer for her mother's sin of having a kid before marriage, because if you didn't already get it at the beginning, that was a big deal to this woman. She was known for encouraging Anneliese to atone for her own sins through fervent devotion. Okay, this mom is trying to dump all her baggage on her poor daughter. That is so messed up. And the illegitimate kid the mom had, aka Anneliese's sister, passed away during a surgery when she was 8. So some people think that the event fueled Anneliese's desire to make amends for her mother's sin. Well, I don't care how much you love your mom and want to make up for her sin. It's not worth going through multiple brain scans, double sightings, floor lickings, bug snacks, or 67 exorcisms. But that's just my opinion. And my other opinion is that I need a bite of this apple fritter. Thanks for watching, and please take care of yourselves.